Why anti-white racism will get worse. When the term racism is used, it is still automatically assumed that the racism being referred to is towards black or Asian people. Racism of this kind, we are told, is one of the most immoral acts imaginable. Yet, if you are white and you complain to be the victim of racism, you will not only be laughed out of the room, but you will be likely told that you are the one being racist for ever even having made such a claim. But if we all agree on the fundamental principle that it is wrong to mistreat or hate anyone because of the colour of their skin, how can this be the case? Well, it turns out that actually we don't all agree on this, far from it. In the past, terms such as positive discrimination or reverse racism have been used to describe racism towards white people. So why was it never just called racism? Because both positive discrimination and reverse racism imply that white people are in a dominant or privileged group, so the discrimination or racism they experience is different from real racism. According to critical race theory, they cannot experience real racism. Any individual person-to-person racism they may experience is irrelevant because it happens within a system that they benefit from, and one which gives them power and privilege. Isn't it just obvious that white people are all evil oppressors? Well, actually, no, it isn't. If we take concepts such as structural racism or systemic racism, arguably one of the worst incidences of this to occur within the UK in recent years has been the rape gang scandal, also known as the grooming gang scandal. Thousands upon thousands of economically disadvantaged white girls were groomed and raped by Asian, specifically Pakistani men. They were targeted because they were white. What's more, the victims were ignored and blamed by the police, and the crimes against them continued to happen because they were white and the perpetrators were not. The UK police were so worried about seeming to being racist towards people with brown skin that they protected rapists and sacrificed the lives of thousands of girls with white skin. Did these girls benefit from white privilege? Presumably, if their skin tone had been different, the police would have treated the abuse inflicted upon them more seriously and would have had the confidence to stop it from happening far sooner. If that isn't systemic racism of the most serious kind, I don't know what it is. And what about the concept like institutional racism? Well, over the last decade, schools and universities have been declaring their adherence to so-called anti-racism and to critical race theory. In other words, they have been openly declaring themselves to be anti-white. White children are being taught to hate themselves and become good anti-racist allies. Psychologists openly state that their practice is informed by anti-whiteness. Theatres are discouraging white people from attending their shows. Professors teach students to decolonize the curriculum, which means remove artists and writers that are white. Librarians are being given training in critical whiteness studies, while job descriptions openly state that they would prefer it if you were not white. No other skin tone, race, or ethnicity is being spoken about in this way and at this scale. In the UK, whole communities have become no-go zones for white people, as graffiti plainly tells them that no whites are wanted there, while protesters and activists openly express a similar hatred. In recent times, our language about race and ethnicity has essentially been based around seeing people as non-white or white, victims or victimizers. Non-white people were called ethnic minorities. Then the acronym BAME, Black, Asian and Minority Ethnic, was brought in. This was then changed to just Minority Ethnic. The emphasis here being on the word minority. For woke progressives, minority rights and interests are everything. Their claim is that racism, discrimination, prejudice, a lack of opportunity, a lack of community, a lack of acceptance and understanding are issues that you're far more likely to experience if you are a minority. But a minority in what sense? Around 60% of the world's population are Asian, 14% are Black African, and around 10% are white, making white a minority globally. It is certainly true that on a national level there are many countries where the majority of people are white, but not necessarily for much longer. If we look at the UK, for example, there are many cities such as Leicester, Slough and Luton where white people are the minority. According to the most recent census completed in 2021, 74.4% of the UK's population identified as white British, which is a decrease from 80.5% in 2011. And according to a professor of demography at the University of Oxford, it is estimated that white people will be a minority in the UK by 2056. This means that in Britain, whether the term ethnic minority is used at a global, national or local level, it will include white British people. So, given that those on the identitarian left have been obsessed with lifting up and fighting for the rights of minorities, presumably they will start making the plight of marginalised whitey, an ethnic minority, one of their main concerns. Yeah, think again. Just at the point where people are becoming racial minorities in countries where they were formerly the majority, a new term has suddenly emerged to describe non-white people. It's the new term used to refer to people who are not white, including people of black, Asian, mixed and other ethnic groups. Apparently, after years of being obsessed with minorities, the radical left have now realised it's actually the majority they are seeking to support and represent. According to one activist, and I quote, "The word minority can make you feel that you are less than, that you are the least, when in reality we are more in terms of numbers." Yes, you heard right, there are more of us than there are of you, and that's why we are the ones that should be listened to. So before, we were told that black and Asian people should be given extra help, extra rights and extra support because they were downtrodden, oppressed and marginalised. But now that white people are the ones who are the minority and the ones experiencing systemic racism, institutional racism, racial segregation, suddenly compassion for the oppressed minority no longer matters. So, going forward, anti-white racism will no longer have anything to do with their supposed unfair privilege or status. Instead, the woke left are finally being open about their racist power grab. There is more of us than there are of you, so we should have power. It was never about concern for minorities. It was always about power.